Welcome back to the ONE THE PRST Podcast. On today's episode, I got Tyler Bosseti. And, the ONE THE PRST Podcast, we talk to entrepreneurs, movement shakers, anyone who is on the pursuit of building things and making things happen and inspiring people. And like I said, on this episode, we got Tyler Bosseti. And Tyler's somebody that I was drawn to through YouTube because he had this amazing video that he put up talking about all these different advantages that you can take advantage of, I would say, by using the tax code, right? So that's what drew me to you originally. And then I just started to do some work and I noticed that you were part of 0%. And I've seen that a lot through Instagram. So I want to talk to you a little bit about that. And the credit stuff, there's a lot of limitations I feel like that people don't know by not utilizing or tapping into credit. I think there's people that probably are afraid to fixing their credit or afraid of just looking at their credit. But once you kind of get over that hurdle, there's a lot of things that kind of open up to you and how you can use that. So, hopefully we can kind of talk about that. But yeah, man, I'm very happy to have you here and, sharing some time with me and the listeners and obviously the viewers and stuff like that. So, tell us a little bit about your journey and things like that.
Yeah, Brendan, appreciate you having me here, man. And thanks for the opportunity. A little bit about me. I am from a very small town named Mechanicsburg, Ohio. It is about an hour away from Columbus, Ohio, which is where I live now. And really just grew up with a lot of limiting beliefs, small town. And although it was a great community and there's pros and cons to anywhere and everywhere that you live, that's really what attracted me to entrepreneurship and money and building what I refer to as generational wealth, right? Leaving myself and generations to come in a better spot than I found it, and also impacting millions of lives along the way to overcome their limiting beliefs, right? So as kind of speed things up in life, I lost my father at a young age. So that's also where a lot of like pain of money and pain of, self-development and personal development comes into play. Fell in love with running later on in my high school career. I was going to run in college and then realized I got to pay for student loans and I got to pay for all of these different expenses that you have when you go to college. I went to Wright State University. It's in Dayton, Ohio for 1 year and really wasn't fulfilled and wasn't following what I wanted to do. So a dream of mine was going to Ohio State University. So I ended up transferring after a year and I was just really dialed in on doing a lot of different things other than school. So the first semester I was there, I was on academic probation. School was never really my thing. I never really failed classes or, did horrendous, but I was definitely the C, B, an A student every once in a while. But it was because I was working like 2 to 3 jobs and partying full time and just having fun at the end of the day too. So to make a long story short, came across a phenomenal opportunity from a close friend of my network at the time. And that was pursuing the mortgage industry. So that's where I learned even more about the power of finances, the power of networking, the power of credit, and ultimately understanding how to also build a team. I had phenomenal mentorship and great people that I learned from and different coaches and whatnot. So for me, it was always, keep moving forward and keep being the best version of myself. And as we are recording this podcast now, the last couple of years, we co-founded our company called 0%. We are a financial services education company where we teach entrepreneurs how to start and scale a business using other people's money. So getting access to personal and or business credit to, again, scale their business or to create passive streams of income, whether that's through e-com or whether that's through investing into real estate, investing into crypto. And then our last piece is getting them to understand investments overall, right? So focusing on how do we use other people's money to scale our business, create passive streams of income. But then ultimately what really matters is how do we properly invest our money, right? We all know that our education system doesn't focus on these areas, right? And so what I personally think is we fear what we don't know, so we just avoid it. So like you said, if you don't know anything about credit or you have bad credit, what do? You just push it off to the next day. You push it off to the next month. It's a problem that you'll solve a week from now, a year from now. But in reality, you're just scared because you don't know it. So once you become educated, then you can take action steps on it, right? Then you can actually say, okay, this is a tool, right? Most people look at credit or going into good debt as a bad thing. No, everything's either a tool or it's a crutch. The same credit card that can scale your business is the same credit card that can also make you go bankrupt.
That's a real good point, man. So a lot of things that you mentioned that you do now in 0%, You have mentioned, you help them with personal credit, business credit, other investing avenues like e-com, crypto, things like that. Is it also a portion of 0% that teaches or helps with insurance? Because I heard you mention financial services.
Yeah, exactly. It's all about understanding those tools and resources, right? So ultimately, if someone says, Tyler, what do you 100% believe in if you had to do something for the
Yeah.
rest of your life,
Hmm.
right? For me, it's going back to history, removing emotion and saying, hypothetically, the best thing, in my personal opinion, someone can do is build a business that they enjoy and they love. That's going to give them the biggest ROI in life, right? They're going to be fulfilled. They're going to live the lifestyle that they want, and they can impact others. And ultimately, when you do those things, you're probably making the most amount of money you can make, right? And then secondly, is I'm a big believer in real estate. Whether you're buying land, whether you're doing fix and flip and holding into properties, whatever it is, like I just think that real estate is just proven, right, that they're not going to make more of Earth. So
Yeah.
and then we can go into it, but there's just 19 trillion other reasons why, in my opinion, real estate's the best asset class. But to get to your point, is through insurance accounts or through different lucrative retirement accounts or through different investment accounts that you can set up. It's coming back to how you found me is through tax advantages. Entrepreneurs get the most amount of tax advantages because they're creating opportunity. The government is saying, hey, look, because you're creating jobs, because you're creating places for people to live, and you're an entrepreneur, we want to incentivize you in the highest expense area that you ever have in your lifetime, which is taxes. And so what we can do is we can mitigate that tax expense by putting money into a self-directed retirement account, putting money into an insurance account, not because I believe in those asset classes, because it's mitigating my taxes. And then most importantly, I can borrow against those accounts to go acquire more real estate.
So if someone's just working a 95, just a regular job like a 9 to 5 right now, they may want to start a business. They're not really sure what they want to do. They don't necessarily have a product in mind currently, or maybe not a service. You know, would you still suggest that they start a business for the tax advantages? Like just go out and start an LLC and figure that out later? Like what, what would you say to that?
Yeah, absolutely. You're never going to go wrong taking action, right, Brendan? So like if someone is not sure what they want to do, in reality, most people should not buy real estate. Most people should not start a business. Most people should actually probably be an employer. Unfortunately, that's just the truth, right?
Yeah.
I think that there's sometimes this idea that entrepreneurship is super sexy and easy and all that. It's really hard, right? And so if you have a 9 to 5 that you enjoy, right, and you can make some good money, then yes, absolutely. I'm not going to give anyone tax advice on here, so that is a disclaimer, right? Obviously, consult with your own counsel, but yeah, you can go set up an LLC and have the major upside of saying, hey, I might want to do some type of consulting on building websites, some type of consulting, or maybe I do want to buy an investment property in the next coming years. And then when you're doing research, when you're buying a laptop, when you are doing XYZ, you may be able to write off your rent. You may be able to write off different expenses that you have. Again, consult with your own counsel, but everyone has analysis paralysis, myself
Yeah.
included. We're designed by human nature to take the comfortable route, to have to know every little step along the way.
Before you
And
take
people,
action.
yeah, just take action.
So earlier you mentioned, like you lost your dad. I lost my father too when I was younger, and
Mm.
while you were in college, it wasn't something that you were super interested in. You found running, and you were doing other things on the side. But like, what were some of the things that kind of kept you focused and kept you going through? Like losing your dad and just other obstacles while you were in school. What were some of the things that kind of kept you focused and going down the path?
Yeah, I think it's always a friendly reminder to prove myself right versus proving people wrong.
Mm,
And, with growing up in a small town, a lot of times, and especially from my family, like my family, they were all good at sports. Like our family was known for being good at really any type of sport, and I was the short fat kid that had a temper and wasn't that good, right? And
yeah,
so there was this false expectation lingering over my head, and that's all that mattered, right? Is you had to be good at sports, you had to do this and that, and there was always an excuse that I made up, right? The coach didn't like me. This happened, that happened, this happened, right? And in reality, I was just, I had a soft foundation, right? Like I had a victim mentality. And so where I learned to train my brain to take accountability for things is through running. There's no excuses, dude. It's literally you
yeah,
versus you. There's really, I don't think personally, any other sport out there in the world that is running. Like there's no excuses. There's zero excuses. It's you versus you. So for me, it was always a chip on my shoulder of like, I'm going to prove myself right, that I'm going to change millions of lives along the way by just being me, right? And just being organic and being real and living with that underdog mentality. I think more people can relate to that underdog mentality, because whether you lost a parent or whether you're from this country or that country, people had it worse, way worse than me, right? But it's all relative. Somebody that grows up in upper middle class, like they still have a story, right? Versus somebody that grows up in a third world country. It's all relative. Everyone has struggles, no matter if it's big or small. So just understanding that, hey, I have an underdog mentality. Let's use it to our advantage.
So that kept you going, having that little chip on your shoulder, and was running something that you just stumbled into. Like how were you first introduced to it? I can definitely agree with you. Like there was a time in my life, I would say, was it 2021 now? So 2014, there was a lot of things going on in my personal life. Like, my first business, my first really successful business, me and my business partner separated. I was physically moving. I started down a new chapter. I had gotten into real estate. So there was a lot of things going on with me and I was seeing a girl and that wasn't really working out. And I was playing basketball, like, team sport. You get a lot from it. It teaches you a lot. But for some reason that year is when basketball was no longer giving me the thing that, was allowing me to take my mind off the things that was going on in like my day-to-day life. So I found running that year, and like you said, it's you versus you. It's like, what are you going to do? It's like you on the road. You're either going to complete the miles or you ain't. Like, you're going to, and then you're going to feel, at least for me, if I didn't like complete that 5-mile run or, whatever the case may be, I would feel way worse about myself because I let myself down. So I agree with you. So running definitely challenged you a lot to grow and stretch and just to become a whole different version of you, I would say, So how was you able to stumble on that? Or how did you find your love for running or that outlet?
Yeah. Great question. I've actually never thought about what I'm about to say here, and as I reflect on this, but I found it through my brother wanted to stay in shape for basketball. He was a great basketball player, and it lined up perfectly where cross country was during the fall time. And so he wanted to stay in shape. So he was conditioned for the basketball season. And I was just like, hey, you know what? I'll go run at one of the practices. Again, small school, like, you could go put on the football pads and go practice that way if you wanted to, right? You could go practice with the wrestling team if you wanted to. So to make a long story short, I just went and ran at one practice, and I ran literally a mile. I think we ran like a mile, and I got done. And I was like, fuck this. This is stupid. This is so dumb. And then what it transitioned into is, no joke, I was literally laying in bed weeks after weeks. And do you remember like those P90X commercials that would come on at like midnight or like 1 o'clock?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Those would pop up. And I just remember being insecure about not being in shape and wanting to just like change, right? Like I just had this desire and this, burning desire to change. And I was like, screw it. I'm going to start doing P90X. And this is before having online fitness was cool. I literally paid a friend in high school to create a private Facebook page. And I was like, yo, every day I'm going to text you when I'm done doing this workout. I'm going to do 90 days nonstop. And then it just led to me doing a workout, P90X, and then running on the track. I was just like, I'm just going to run. And I hated it. And then where it really started to click is I ended up joining the cross country team because the coach approached me. He's like, hey, I've been seeing you out here running. Like, dude, why don't you just run on the team? I was like, I don't know. You guys are wearing like some short shorts looking goofy as hell. I'm out here running with Jordan shorts on. Like, I don't know about this. This is for the nerds. And in reality, it was one of the greatest decisions ever. And one of the last races of the season, I hit a PR. And that's where like, I remember driving home on the bus and I was like, this is my shit. I'm gonna commit. I'm gonna go all in. And that's exactly what I did and fell in love with it.
So 2 things I want to have you kind of highlight in there. So for those that are watching and for those that are listening, could you just explain what a PR is? And then also again, I kind of want to dig a little deeper, like that desire that you have, because there's definitely a desire that you have to do more, to show for yourself, to be someone that takes on challenges, and a lot of people, they lack that, or they have to go somewhere to find that. But
Mm-hmm.
just speaking to you for just this short period of time, like I realize and I recognize within you, there's definitely a fire that burns, that has you self motivated to do and go after the things that you're currently going after. And I'm pretty sure you have a bunch of goals that you're working towards rest of this year and
Yeah.
then next year. So can you just kind of elaborate on those two things? Like, what allows you to have that fire burn in the way that it does? And then for those that don't know, that are not, familiar with running, what is a PR?
Yeah, PR is a personal record. So, throughout the season, after a few races, you can kind of figure out like, okay, this is going to be in order. Who's probably going to be the best runners on the team, the best runners that you're competing against, and the best runners in the local area, right? And I just remember going into the last race, going like, oh well, it's not really a big deal. Like I'm going to get sixth out of 10 on the team, and I just went and ran. And I remember it was like the first race ever going into it, like where I just was, I want to say nonchalant, but I was just like relaxed about it versus like, man, I'm going to try to beat this person on the team or the person here or get this specific time. I just went and ran. And I remember like the last mile, I just ran hard. I ran my own race, right? I think that's one thing that we can take away is like run your own race. And I ended up getting like third or fourth on the team. And I was like, oh, okay. I think I got something here. I think I can get really good. And then to answer your second question is where did you get that burning desire? I love that analogy. Like literally what you said is what I remind myself all the time is my father passed away from a house fire when I was 8 years old. And then
Mm,
when I was in the mortgage industry, 6 months into dropping out of college, going all in on the mortgage industry, I ended up doing the house hack model where I bought a duplex, lived in one side, and crazy situation happened where someone broke into my side of the unit, lit it on fire, and I lost everything overnight. So life was good. Tyler's on the come up. He's pursuing a career. I got a little bit of backlash of like, why did you just drop out of college, you idiot, right? But people could see like, okay, he's making moves, right? And then boom, lost everything. And so what's ironic is I lost my dad. These pivotal moments in life was legitimate fire, right? Like actual fire. And so that's what I remind myself of is that feeling that you have in your gut. That's a spark. That's a fire. Don't let somebody else put that flame out. And exactly what that thing is, or those things are that keep that fire ignited. Keep doing those things. And that's when you're going to start seeing more results in life.
So, first of all, that's crazy, man. To have those correlations around fire with, obviously your dad, and then you losing, that home to that fire. So, was it the entire home or just your side that caught the fire?
Yeah, thankfully just my side. So yeah, unique situation. I was out and about with friends on a Saturday night. To make a super long story short, was talking and seeing this girl for literally a few weeks. Didn't realize there were other I don't know, right? Unique situation. Not going to make major assumptions, but yeah, thankfully it was just my side. But that's where I learned so much, right? Man, I was hopping around in Airbnbs and hotels, had to get a different apartment, was driving around with guns on me. Like, who the hell is coming after me? Like, I'm just this dude in the mortgage industry, right? Like, was not doing anything crazy, wasn't seeing 100 girls at once, right? I was just doing me. And so it was an interesting time. And yeah, it just taught me to keep the flame, keep your head on a swivel. And yeah, at the end of the day, whoever did it, I have a good idea who it is. And if they're watching this, my intention was, all right, motherfucker, you can't stop me. I'm going to come back bigger than ever. So if you're watching this, fuck you. And secondly, you could take everything off of my back. I can lose everything. That's all fluff. I'll come back bigger and better.
Yeah, I definitely agree with your sentiments right there. You sound like someone that understands that, the real, power and energy and just the self confidence and self awareness. It's all on the inside. Like it's truly how you feel about yourself. So, like you said, you could be stripped down, everything can be taken away. You was in that situation. I'm pretty sure other things may happen to you after that, but
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't change how you feel in here, and in the mind, and also how you feel inside of your heart, inside of your body. So
Yep.
one of the things you had just mentioned there as well was house hacking. and I know we were talking about real estate a little bit. So for the
Mhm.
viewers that are not really familiar with that terminology, could you go into detail on what house hacking is and just give like one or two examples? I'm in real estate also, and I had taking out a client last week who was buying a single family house. And we were
Mhm.
going over some different scenarios that she could get into to take advantage of, the house hacking model. But what I
Mhm.
find when I'm talking to some of my clients, a lot of them just, especially the ones that are looking just to get into something, right? They think that when they purchase that first home, like that's it. They're not really thinking beyond that. So
Yeah.
like a lot of people may get into a mortgage for 30 years. They may not have any understanding that there's opportunities there for you to use a property, to leverage a property, take
Yeah.
advantage of equity, potentially house hack, which you're going to explain a little bit, or just use that property to potentially get another one, right? Things like that.
Yeah.
So, could you just explain a little bit about the house hacking model, and give an example?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm a big believer that everyone has their own beliefs and thoughts on what the best investment strategy is, right? Only buy deals with the most amount of doors, only do this, only do that, right? But like, look, the facts are the facts. 97% of people only have one or less properties, right? So, first thing that we need to do is get in the game. Do you actually want to buy your own deal? Do you want to passively invest? Because again, similar to what I said about entrepreneurship, most people don't need to invest in real estate actively. They need to find you, they need to find me, they need to find someone in their network that they trust that they can do it with, right? Because it's a lot of work, right? There's a lot of X's and O's. And if you screw it up, then that can really impact you forever. And it's taken away what you're really passionate about, which is your business, your job, your family, et cetera. So to answer your question, yeah, the house hacking model is a great, great, great way, especially if you are single. It doesn't really matter, but hypothetically, younger person that may be single has a little bit more flexibility. You can buy a property, ideally a 2 to 4 unit, right? Like I did. I bought a 2 unit property. You live in one side, so you have the ability to put less money down with the lender versus an investment property that you're not living in. They require typically, upwards of 20, 25% down, depending on the lender. But you live in one side of the property, you rent out the other units. And so hypothetically, in a perfect world, you rent it out and that person pays you rent, and that covers a majority or all of your expenses. But ultimately, what it's doing, it's getting you in the game, and it's getting you in the game with the least amount of cash coming out of your pocket, right? I think that's a huge mistake people make in general in life and in business and in real estate is they're using their own cash. But if you can't get a 2 to 4 unit, duplex, triplex, or 4 unit, then they can do exactly what you're referring to, where they can buy a single family home and they can live in, let's say, a 3 bedroom, 2 bath home and rent out the bedrooms to their friends
Mm.
or to a family member. Or you can even put those bedrooms on Airbnb, right? So there's a lot of lucrative ways to house hack. And ultimately, yeah, I do believe more doors is better. But ultimately, you got to get in the game, right? How do we get in the game? And how do we actually learn how the process works, right? So I think it's a great way to get started in real estate is through the house hack model.
So, one of the things you said right there is definitely getting into the game, and also you have mentioned, getting into something that maybe it's a duplex or maybe 4 units is a good way. But then also, if you're just grabbing a condo or a single family, like you said, if your mind is thinking long term, you could get into that single family or that condo, 2 bedroom, 3 bedroom, like you said, Airbnb, the other one or the other two, or get a
Mhm.
roommate because you're thinking about the next play. You're thinking about the long term. So 9 months from now, a year from now, 18 months, maybe 2 years from now, you step into that second property or that third property. You're only going to be in that situation in that condo with that person or persons for a short period of time. Because if
Yep.
if the next move is going to be the multifamily at that point, or if the next move is going to be another condo, another single family, it's really just a shell game at that point. You just kind of moving things along, and then ultimately get into maybe you want a larger single family in a different part of town, or maybe you
Mhm.
actually want to move to another state, but you got investment properties in your current state. You're just planting the seeds and having them sprout, and taking advantage of the cash flow that's coming in. That's going to enable you to be more flexible, and then obviously do the things that you need to do down the line. So I think
Exactly.
getting into the game is like you said, the main way, and there's no real specific way or that's better than another to get in. Maybe strategically or positioning, you could choose one way versus the other. But as long as you are on the board, as long as you, like you said, are in the game, you can kind of see what opportunities are available to you once you're actually playing, right?
Yep. Totally. Yeah, exactly. Like you're not going to learn unless you're doing it, right? Like every deal that I do is different. I learn something from every single deal that I've done. And it's not about saying that you don't have a housing payment or that a tenant's paying for your rent. Like that's not the idea. The idea is like you said, you're in the game, you're learning. Hey, do I want to manage this myself? Do I want to use a manager? This is how a home warranty works when your hot water heater breaks, right? This is how insurance work if something burns down in your house, right? Here's how I can go back to this property and leverage against that equity. Here's tax advantages that I have, right? Real estate's designed to build wealth. It's designed to blink in 20 years and go, oh, okay, I'm good. I can retire. I don't have to work for somebody else. Or you know what? I'm in a great spot. I can go to the beach. I can travel here. I can do these different things, which is planting those seeds, like you said.
So another thing you mentioned that I would like for you to just kind of go into some detail is on like the leveraging play. People not necessarily taking advantage of leveraging other people's money, OPM, or just other opportunities right there. So could you talk a little bit about that? What are the different ways to either leverage, credit or leverage other people's money to get into some deals or just to create some opportunities for yourself?
Yep, absolutely. Again, I think one of the biggest mistakes people make, and the two reasons why people, in my personal opinion, don't get started in real estate is they think they have to have all this experience. And then most importantly, they think they have to have all this money, right? They have to save all this money up and cover their down payment and cover their renovations or do whatever they need to do. And that's just false. It's not true. So you need to get educated on different loan programs that you may be able to use. And also you need to get educated to understand that, hey, you can actually go get a 0% business credit card, liquidate that credit card, go work with a local bank, or worst case scenario, a hard money lender, and they don't care where the down payment comes from. You can liquidate money out of that business credit card, cover your down payment. That hard money lender gives you financing for the other 90, 80% of the property. Boom, you never touch your own cash, right? And so you can use and leverage your credit, specifically business 0% cards that don't report on your personal credit. So it doesn't destroy your personal credit scores because the utilization isn't maxed out, right? But then secondly, there's this beautiful way to raise private money, right? Where you go to your family, your friends, people in your network, and you can raise capital from them. And if you've never done a deal, right, like that's okay, right? We all had to start with getting money from somebody else that trusted us, right? So people have to know, like, and trust you. And they can't like or trust you unless they know you. So you got to go out and you got to network and give them a hypothetical situation. And then go back to the stats that I just gave. Over 90% of people don't own investment properties. So like your batting percentage is great, right? And so people think like, well, I don't have any experience. How would somebody else trust me? Well, they don't have any fucking experience either. That's just a made up belief that you made. So give them an example. Hey, look, this is what I'm looking for in my areas, a 3-bedroom, 2-bath around this price. Hypothetically put X amount of money into this deal. And if I can find it and I can close on it, I'm going to ask you to be my lender to cover X, Y, and Z of the cost, right? All of it, or maybe just a down payment. I use a hard money lender, and then I'm going to pay you out a debt return. I'm going to pay you back a percent of the profits or a percent on the money that you invested, right? And so number one is you can leverage your credit, right? You can leverage business credit to cover that. You can go raise private capital. And then last but not least, you can, multiple other ways. But the last point that I'll bring up is as you start building your portfolio, now more than ever, because interest rates are at a historic low and you're paying down the loans, right? You can go back and tap into the equity tax free. So if you have a $100,000 property that's owned free and clear, hypothetically, you could go back to the bank and say, hey, I want to refinance, get a 3% interest rate on that, get 75% of that 100K back in your pocket, 75 grand. You could do whatever you want with it. But hypothetically, you take that 75K and that's your down payment for the next property, right? And that's how you build wealth, right? That's the leverage piece of why I personally think one of the major reasons why real estate is untouchable when it comes to the best asset class is because I can consistently borrow against these assets at a low rate to go buy more assets that are cash flowing, and it just compounds over time.
So you just in that little small little segment, I would say you dropped so many gems for the listeners and the viewers about what they could potentially do and just what's out there, what's available, you know. But if someone is listening and they may not have the best credit, you know, they may just have a job, they don't currently have any assets. If you were in their position, what would be like 3 things that you would give them to start? That could be, you know, maybe even some books or in general, like, or maybe just to get their credit right. Well, you know, what are a couple of things that you would say would be the first steps to like heading down that path?
Yeah. Phenomenal question. So number one, understand that you have an income problem, not a credit, not a saving problem. You have an income problem. So do you like your job? Are you making the most amount of money you can make? You can't make investments unless you have money, right? Some people try to jump to step 3, right? They're like, well, how do I get my first property? Well, look, dude, or you make no fucking money. So you need to go get better at your job, right? You need to go put in some real work. You need to quit wasting your weekends and quit leaving the office at 5 p.m., right? That's just a reality check people need to have. You need to go make more money, right? That simple. And number 2 is you need to get educated on those certain things like credit, right? If your credit is not good, why? Right? Do you know why? It's because you're making your payments on your due date, not your statement date. So you're swiping your credit card every month and you're maxing out the card, and although you're paying it off, well, you're not making the payment on the statement date when that bank reports to the 3 bureaus. So that's why your scores are at a 650 and not a 750. You need to make payments on the statement date, not the due date, right? Or, hey, look, you have a medical collection. You can go to cfpb.gov, again, cfpb.gov, and submit a complaint and try to get these negative things off your credit report, right? So you need to get educated. You need to get educated to understand that, hey, banks are going to look at credit, income, and assets. What are the banks going to look for to give me money, right? So once we understand that we have an income problem, not a spending problem or a saving problem, right? Then we can put our energy into making more income, right? And then secondly, we have also an education problem. So as far as books, I think a great place to start when it comes to real estate, really just entrepreneurship and the mental mindset is, I'm sure you've heard this 101 times, is Rich Dad Poor Dad. I think it's, if anything, a mindset book of consistently asking yourself questions versus statements, right? Like, how do I get my first investment property versus I don't have the money, right? So it's a great philosophy mindset book of how can I do things versus, oh, here's where I'm at. It's like the bullshit victim mentality, right? And then secondly, as far as like resources on the day in, the day out, I don't think, and hopefully I can change this, right? I can go back and reflect back and say it's me that's given the most content. So definitely check out my page, but also I think Bigger Pockets is a great resource. They put out a shitload of, quality content that people can follow.
So we got income, credit, and then education.
Yeah. People need to make more money, right? Like you need to make more money, and then you need to understand the credit game. You need to understand that the wealthiest people in the world use other people's money, right? The wealthiest people in the world understand how to leverage, and they understand that there's a difference between good debt and bad debt. And debt creates opportunity, right? When people go to college and they have $50,000 of student loans at a 3% interest rate, and they're making $50,000 a year, they're trying to just pay off that student loan as quickly as they can. It's like, look, imagine if you had good credit and you can go get $50,000 right now on that brand new LLC that you just set up. We just saved you a year of your life, if not more. How long would it have taken you from your $50,000 a year income to save that money? It would take you 5 years. It would take you 6 years. It would take you 6 months. It would take you however long that is. So you're accelerating that process, understanding how to use other people's money, right? And then when you understand how to use other people's money to go create good debt and good opportunity by buying cash flowing assets like real estate, right? That is passive income. And that's going to what we started this whole podcast out with taxes. If I'm making, 6 figures a month in passive income, when I go to file my taxes, right? Hypothetically, that's going to be, I'm paying no taxes on that, right? Or if I pay a little bit on that, that is way different than an active income, right? I am paying significantly less. So in reality, $1,000 of passive income is 2 to 3 times more powerful than active income.
Definitely. I I would definitely agree with you that right there for sure. So based on a lot of things that you're explaining here, people should be thinking about assets over liabilities, getting into more assets, increasing their income or investing into cash flow and opportunities, learning more about credit, or just getting into that credit game. Like if you're someone that whose credit isn't good, and when we say isn't good, what would you say? Just under 7? What would you say isn't good? Like a
Yeah.
680?
Yeah, really
Human.
like yeah, really like a 680 or lower, hypothetically be in the 700s. But most importantly is getting educated on like how does credit work, right? Like how does
Yeah,
FICO work? How, understanding that when you go get a car, they're going to pull a different FICO score than when you go to get a mortgage or when you go get a credit card. And then also understanding that from a granular level, like Credit Karma is great to track things, right, and to get updates, but that's not your real FICO score,
yeah, one
right?
hundred
Like
percent.
that's
I'm definitely happy you said that. I was gonna ask you that too. So I'm happy that you brought that in.
But yeah, that's the first piece, right? On the credit side of things is understanding that all these free resources that you see, if you're not actually paying money for a credit report, whether it's $1 with creditchecktotal.com, it's branded as Experian, but you can go get a credit report right now for $1. Then they'll put you on a subscription plan. Typically it's like $25 to $30, or you can go to myfico.com. You need to understand that when you pay money, that is when you're getting a real credit score. And it's not going to pull your credit as a hard inquiry, right? That's giving you your legitimate FICO 8 score. And on those platforms, they have an abundance amount of resources. And obviously, go check out my YouTube channel and whatnot. Like I explained the breakdown of that. But ultimately, that shows you, oh, okay, if I go pull my score right now and I want to go get my wealth wagon, the G wagon, right? This is what my scores are going to be, right? And here's how they're measuring it. If I go get a mortgage, here's what they're going to see, right? Versus Credit Karma, that is not a FICO score, right? That's giving you an idea of where they think it is, but it's not going to be 100% accurate. The algorithms are not the same. And going back to the point, not to completely change directions here, but I was actually reflecting on this morning is what could I have done? I, Tyler Bosseti, have done differently to expedite my success, to expedite my growth. And that is being very clear on what I wanted and getting around people and connecting with mentors that had what I had, or, had what I wanted, excuse me. I think a lot of times when you're in a job, when you're in the environment that you've been in, people, places, things that affects us as human beings. And so if you don't like your job, then why the hell are you going to listen to advice from people there? Right? Identify what you actually want to do. Because when you have clarity, you have confidence. When you have confidence, you can get results. And you can get that clarity about being around people and listening to people that actually have what you want. If you don't like real estate, probably shouldn't listen to me, right? So that's the first step is who has what I want and how can I get around them? How can I get information? How can I study their moves, right?
Yeah, and now's probably the easiest way for you to do that because you don't necessarily have to physically get around someone anymore. I mean, I definitely think getting around someone physically and putting yourself in certain situations is continues to be the greatest thing, the greatest impact on you. But if you don't have the resources for whatever reason, or if there's someone that you really want to get around and they're on the other side of the country or maybe in a whole nother country, you're able to leverage and still get around them digitally, like you said, the YouTube, the Instagram, they got a TikTok page, do they have a podcast,
Yep.
do they have a book, do they got an ebook, is there a program, is there a course? Like there's all these different ways that you can still get in that energy from someone that you want to learn to or tap into or potentially build with. You just have to start reaching out. And that's something else that I wanted to kind of touch on, is just that awareness. So what do you think, how important is it to you with creating awareness about, what someone is doing on a business side, or if they got a product or if they got a service, or maybe if they just want to leverage and connect with more people?
Yeah, you brought up a great point. I mean, it's the best of times and worst of times, right? Like if you think that your life is in shambles and whatever, like you have a victim mentality, and that's the first place we need to start is the mindset, right? Like, why do you think the things that you do? Why do you do the things that you do? Why do you hang around the people that you do? And if you look at life as like, hey, it's the best of times, no matter what's going on in the world, right? Then that's a good thing. And I asked myself that, and I learned that from my grandfather on my dad's side. is he told me a while back, it's the best of times and the worst of times, right? And it's a self audit, and then it's also an environment audit. If you ask that to people in your circle, what are they saying to you? Oh, well, this is going on, that's going on, right? But to come back to what you mentioned, one thing to be cautious of is some things are, as far as information, we're in the information age, right? It's like drinking from a fire hydrant where there's so much that we can consume. So you have to get really granular and like, what do you actually want to do? What are you passionate about, right? And then going from there. And then also too, like if you're just getting started, like you have to get mentorship, you have to get into mastermind, you have to get in the ecosystem. Like you have to get into that ecosystem of what people are doing that you want to be doing. I've had the most quantum leaps in my life from paying for coaches, paying for mentors, consuming as much as I possibly can from them. But then when it comes to what you had mentioned, it's totally right. Like if people don't know who you are, attention pays at the end of the day. If people don't know who you are, then they can't like you, they can't trust you, they can't eventually pay you, right? They can't come to you for your services. So you have to start producing content versus consuming, right? Or have a good balance of both where you're sharing value to the world. And that's where my content, in my personal opinion, took a big leap, and where I'm consistently trying to work on is like me making this podcast and speaking to you right now. It's not about Tyler Bosseti. It's not about me having an ego to say, here's everything I've done. Hopefully someone can resonate with what I'm saying, and it lights the flame in them to be like, hell yeah, I'm starting today. No questions asked, right? How can you make it about you versus about me? And when you do that, that's when things start flowing way easier. And that's when you can start bringing the real value to the world, and you can monetize value, right? And you can monetize that attention.
I think you're 100% correct. Just to kind of elaborate a little bit on what you said. So basically just starting where you are, like I re-listened to this amazing podcast the other day, Ed Milet and Jesse Itzler. And Are you familiar with Jesse Itzler?
Yeah, one of my favorite people.
Yeah, so he was, he's one of those guys, right? He started all these businesses that had tremendous impact on people's lives, but he just went with the idea. Like he just had the idea and then he took action, right? And there's a lot of people that want to start something and then are starting because they feel like it has to be perfect or it has to be a certain way, or I got to get these things going first, or I got to know all this stuff first. But just to elaborate more on what you're saying, you just got to start. You just got to start and not be afraid to put it out there and be consistent and do it again and reach out to people and share. And I think one of the things that a lot of people miss out on is something that I say constantly, and I always just try to keep in mind and pay attention to is just people's attention spans in 2021. So if the average person's attention span is about 9 seconds, and or if you don't know, people need to see things or hear things about 7 to 10 times before they make an action, then what you're doing isn't enough. Not anything right now, you're not cutting through at all. But if you're making one attempt or two attempts, you're not even doing the minimum, the average for that person to even recognize you among all of the white noise that's going on. Because we're all in this matrix in a sense, right? We all got access to social, YouTube, Google, whether you're doing a 9 to 5 and an entrepreneurship, maybe you're an entrepreneur, you got multiple businesses, maybe you got a family, maybe you got friends, extracurricular activities. There's a lot of stuff going on. So if you're if you have a product or a service and you're trying to offer that to someone, you have to realize they're just as busy, or if not more busier than you currently are. So if you just have one attempt or two attempt, there's absolutely no way that this person or this client is going to receive your message or remember to click that link in the bio or purchase that thing or whatever the case may be, or maybe subscribe to your YouTube channel or even watch your YouTube. You have to continue to follow up or put yourself out there enough that they recognize you, that they notice you, So I think that was huge. That you just mentioned that just that starting piece of where you are, man. I think that was. I mean, you said a lot of amazing things in the podcast, but I think that one hit me the most. I feel like that's something that people could take advantage of right now and implement where no matter where they are, because some of the other things, they definitely need to start. But like if you're someone with an idea, you could start that idea right now.
Yeah. We're in a time right now where you can go viral in 2 seconds. Your business can pop off in 2 seconds, right? But also it can not explode until 20 years from now. That's another reason why I think I secretly love running and I love real estate. And it's because it's the ultimate longevity game. I ask myself this question almost every day: who the fuck's going to be here in 10 years? Who's going to be here in 20 years? The people that show up every day, they're consistent, they provide value. And Jesse Ilter is a prime example of that, right? Like everyone knows who he is now, but it's because he's done the work, right? He's been consistent. And you have to fall in love with the process, right? And if you can't fall in love with the process, you're probably doing things that you don't enjoy. So again, I think that's, for me, it's that beauty of going out on that 10-mile run. It's the beauty of saying, hey, I could go buy a lot more crypto. I could do all these other things, these flashy things, right? And staying focused, right? Like I think that's where, especially when you get started and you start to grow and you start getting attention, you start getting some money and you start getting some eyeballs, more opportunities come, right? More distractions come. And so it's the focus game. It's like you said, it's we all want, and we're humans. We want instant gratification. We want it now. But what can we do to build a foundation and make sure that that foundation never collapses?
And that'll last for sure, man. So on that note, man, I want to thank you for tapping in, for creating this opportunity to share with others and share with the viewers and the listeners on this podcast. I wanna ask you a question in regards to people that are watching, that are listening in. If they wanted to tap in to you on a real estate side or just on the 0% financial services side, what's the best way that they can get in contact with you? And how can they get your assistance or your guidance with either the real estate or the financial services?
Yeah, first off, man, really appreciate you having me here. Thanks for the opportunity and the ability to rant here. So I hope you guys got some value from that. And as far as reaching out, you guys can go to 0%.com and you guys can schedule a call with us and just check out our page and see what we do. And then secondly, social media, go to my Instagram. You guys can send me a DM. Obviously, everyone and their grandma has 19 different fake accounts. So it's just my first name and my last name. I don't have any other account. And definitely check out my YouTube channel. I put quite a bit of content out there. And again, on Instagram, which is, at Tyler Bosseti.
I mean, appreciate it. Is there anything else you want to share with the listeners or the viewers while we have the opportunity?
Yeah, man, it's all in your head. It's a made up story. It's a limiting belief. It's something that's probably not real. So all those false things that you're making up, it's just all in your head. Get out of your own way. And the right step is the one forward, right? If you're trying to drive a car and look out of the rearview mirror, that's your past, right? That's a made up story. So do things that you're passionate about. Think longevity. Think 10 years from now. Think 100 years from now. Think about who is that going to impact along the way. Because if you're providing more value than what you're getting in return, everything is going to flow and life is going to be much better.
I agree. And if I can add to that, I would say something that you have mentioned even earlier: tap into mentorship, your environment, and get around some good people. I think that's going to definitely help you along the way, and definitely help you a little faster with a lot of things that Tyler just mentioned. Do a little audit with who's in your life, what's influencing you, and possibly move to a new environment, or maybe put yourself in another new environment. Like maybe if you can't move, just go to different places in your town or your city. That'll shake things up. If you can move, maybe you should definitely do that. And then just get around some good people. Maybe you got 5 or 6 friends that you interact with, but maybe there's only one of them that's really trying to change their life. Maybe you should spend a little bit more time with that person versus the other ones, and tap into some mentorship, buy some coaches or some programs, and really start being a little bit more intentional. But yeah, man, I want to thank Tyler again. If you're listening, make sure you continue to tap into the ONE THE PRST Podcast, and we'll see you guys on another one.